And we're coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker here at Area 52, just outside of West Plains, Missouri. This is Pastor Mike, and I am online, and I am still alive today. Even after the election, people are giving up. They're giving up. They're saying it's all over with. It's done. I think it's just started. I have the attitude. I was watching the election returns Tuesday night, as were most of all y'all. And of course, I have a lot of things to say on it today. I've got pieces of paper. We got some articles from Drudge Report today, some things going on right now. The post-election America is what we're going to be dealing with today. We're going to be dealing with principles of godly government, how God says for man to be governed. This is how God says for man to be governed. Some people cannot grasp that in their mind, that God would have anything to say about government. In fact, I have been criticized by people in this church. They don't go here anymore. But I've been criticized in the past by people in this church for bringing politics into the pulpit. It belongs in the pulpit. It belongs, if there's any place that a discussion of right politics belongs, it's in the house of God. This is why we are what we are today in this country. It's because too many of the pulpits back down. I remember sitting in on a meeting back when we were part of the denomination. And they put me on a committee. We went to a denominational meeting, a local one, St. Louis area. They put me on a denominational committee, and, you know, we're going to make resolutions. Okay, let's make some resolutions then. Well, you know, let's resolve to give the guest church a standing ovation. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's make a resolution that we're going to pledge support to such and such missionary. Okay, let's do that. And I said, and this was back when, let's see, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Bill Federer. A guy named Bill Federer from this area wrote a book called America's God and Country. I know Bill. And he was running for Congress against Dick Gebhardt. And I said, why don't we have a resolution saying let's vote for Bill Federer? And the chairman, an old preacher, well, we don't want to get involved in politics here. That might not sit well with some people. And I just went, oh, okay. Politics belongs in our pulpits, people. Preachers need to preach politics, need to preach it from the Bible, but they need to preach politics instead of being afraid of everybody sitting in their church. They need to preach certain ideas and certain principles so that this country stands a chance. Now, I watching the election returns. Nobody that I voted for won. Now, I did not vote for president. I stood my ground. I kept my word. It wouldn't have made a difference anyway. Romney won the state of Missouri, but I did not give him my vote. I voted for local officials. We had a Senate race. Claire McCaskill, a liberal Democrat, voted for Obama. I voted against her. I voted for Todd Akin. He's a Christian man. I voted for the man. They maligned him. They set him up in the media in this state, and he lost the election. I voted for him, lost. I voted for a Republican businessman over a liberal Democrat from a town just close to where I live for governor. Lost that one. And just several things that I voted, several people I voted for, the country didn't go that way. Let me tell you about Claire McCaskill. And this is kind of segueing into what I'm going to talk about. I don't know if you remember, this goes back to a Watchman video broadcast. I don't remember when it was. It might have been 2009. This goes way back. And what happened was they started having the Tea Party meetings. We went to a Tea Party meeting. I took video. I featured that on a Watchman. This is years ago. And then Senator Claire McCaskill was going to have a town hall meeting at Jefferson College, which is about 2 miles from my house. And she says going to have a town hall meeting on Obamacare. It hadn't been voted on yet. So I went with a video camera and I recorded all kinds of stuff. There was 3,000 plus people there at this meeting. Most of them retired people, a lot of union Democrats that were saying, we don't want this health care bill. I mean, we voted for you, but we're not voting for that. And I remember distinctly one man who was allowed to ask a question. He said, Senator McCaskill, do you not understand what we're saying here? All of us gathered here together. Do you not understand what we're saying? What we're saying is that if you vote for Obamacare in this country, we'll fire you. Don't you know that? And he got the biggest round of applause that anything got there. And I was going, yeah, that's right. We're going to fire you. And I'm expecting then for people to keep their word. I'm expecting the Tea Party movement and the people who are against all this government intrusion on everything to stand up and say, we're not voting for these guys again. And I woke up Tuesday night to a new reality. The reality is, this is not the country that I thought that I lived in. I don't live in the country that I thought I lived in. We have been given too many government handouts. We have centralized local governments, and I'm going to show you from the scripture that that's wrong. It's a sign of judgment of God. I'm going to show you this from the Bible. It is a sign of God's judgment for there to be centralized power in a nation. Prove it to you. I don't live in the America that I thought I lived in. I don't live in the America. I don't think Ronald Reagan could run for president and win now in this country. I don't believe that it will happen. Now, about 30 minutes ago, I go downstairs and Gary's watching videos like on Fox News, and he's watching YouTube videos. Is that what I pay him for? Apparently it is. He's watching YouTube videos, and they're showing how elections can be rigged. I believe it. I believe it. But still, and there's fraud undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. There was voting fraud in Chicago. Undoubtedly. But I will also tell you this. You don't need voting fraud in Chicago because 90% of Chicagoans are going to vote for a liberal Democrat. Why? Because they're on the government dole somehow, some way. They're on the government payroll. They're being bankrolled by the federal government, and they've been told if you elect such and such, he's going to pull your money away. If you elect so-and-so, he's going to give you more money. And that's what's happening. And the liberal base in this country, the anti-Bible Christianity principle base in this country, has sold out to the idea that we're going to give Americans more money, that way they'll vote on us. And this is what's going on in this country. Now, I mentioned an email last night in our church service, and I have the email in front of me right here. This is from Brent Evans, 53, and this is what he writes. He says, my comment is, that's what he said, my comment. My comment is, now that Obama has 4 more years, that's what he said, now that Obama has 4 more years in office, does this mean that you will act like Rush Limbaugh, Limball, Sean Hannity, and Bill O'Reilly? I mean, you hate Obama and always seem to say bad things about him in all your shows. To me, you're, Y-O-U-R, racist. It kind of makes you wonder what school he went to, what Chicago school district this guy went to. To me, you're racist, just like Hannity, Rush, and O'Reilly. I know, N-O, you have the guts to read this on your show because you are really a politician trying to get Republican votes, you coward. I read it exactly, just like Gary says, read it exactly the way it's written. So this guy says that I'm a coward and I won't read his email on my show because really I'm a Polish-an. Whatever that is. Trying to get Republican votes, you coward. That's what I am. This is the argument of someone who doesn't, boy, how can I say, I'm going to make somebody mad about this. I'm going to say something and somebody's going to, oh, you shouldn't talk like that. Number one, learn how to spell. That's the first thing you ought to do. Learn how to spell. Learn the difference between your and your. You are. Learn the difference. Find out how to spell. Get a dictionary and find out how to spell Polish-an or politician. And it never occurs to you, Brent, never occurs to you that maybe I have biblical reasons why I don't like the policies of Barack Hussein, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and I'll even say this. Most of the Republicans in Congress, I have biblical issues with what they do and how they do it. Big issues, real biblical principles. And so the limit of your ability to think is because you are the product of probably 30 to 40 years of liberalization, political correctness being given in our classrooms, in our universities, and in over the television and radio airwaves. You fall into the category of Whoopi Goldberg, who, by virtue of nothing other than her having a big mouth and an ability to act and tell jokes and be sarcastic, gets on The View and says, if you don't like Barack Obama, it's because you are a racist. Never mind that he says, I think it's okay for a doctor to go in to a teenage girl's body, rip her baby to shreds, pull the shredded remains of her baby out, not discard them because there's too much money now in those cells. Sell the tissue for a profit. Sew her back up. Send her back to school. And her mom and dad have no right to know that she was there. That's what Barack Hussein is in favor of. But I don't like him because he's half white. Is that what you're saying? Or the fact that he said in front of a church audience at Rick Warren's church, that when he was asked the question, do you think homosexuals should be allowed to marry? Well, that's above my pay grade. I don't think I can answer that question. Lied through his teeth, comes back now and says, well, yeah, why shouldn't they marry? I mean, two guys kissing each other on the mouth? What's unnatural about that? It's perfectly right. It's normal. And then, oh, I'm a Christian. I went to Jeremiah Wright's church. And then goes down and bows down and bends over to every Muslim leader in the world. But for some reason, you think that I'm a racist because he's half white. I don't understand you. I don't understand that way of thinking. I don't comprehend what comic books you get that from. I don't understand that. That's just beyond me. Do you not know that there are moral and legal and ethical questions about the government's role in this country right now? Do you not know that we have legitimate reasons why we stand in opposition to this? But I will tell you, the thinking of Edward, the thinking of him and the way he presents himself and the way he spits out this vomit is apparently typical of the majority of Americans, because they put him back in office. Worst economy. $13 trillion worth of debt. $13 trillion of stuff that we cannot pay off. And Harry Reid, let me read this article here. Harry Reid is already promising, according to Drudge Report, Harry Reid is already promising that we are going to raise the debt limit. Harry Reid says that this was a mandate to raise taxes. Harry Reid. Now, you need to think about this, because if you're sitting out there and you think that my money does not legally and rightfully and lawfully belong to me, if you think that my income does not initially belong to me, then that's part of the problem. Because apparently most people in government don't think that my income or anything else, any benefit that I get, that doesn't belong to me first. It belongs to the government first, and they will let me have what they think. Now listen to this now. What they think I need. Because all of the ads that I heard before the election against guys who were conservative people who were going to say, we need to cut taxes. We need to we need to balance the budget. We need to quit spending all of our money. We need to do this. All the attack ads could say was they want to cut taxes for their millionaire buddies and their millionaire selves. Don't they know it's not their money? This idea that the government should own everybody's money and then give out only what they think people need, that's communism. And it's unbiblical. I'll show it to you from the Bible. So here is Harry Reid. He's going to raise taxes. He's going to raise the debt ceiling. What else did Harry Reid do for? Harry Reid moves to limit GOP filibusters. It's all about Harry Reid. Here's what he's going to do. He's going to change the rules that they both have been running by for the last, 100 years or so, to basically limit the amount of power that the Republicans have in the Senate, so that basically whatever Reid wants to do, he will be able to do. Doesn't care what the will of the people is, and doesn't care. He has all he's going to try to centralize the power. I'm going to show you why this is wrong in just a little bit. Now, having said all that, today must be Military Day, because I have some emails. Now, I have made the statement before that I think if you're going to say something, you ought to say it and not be afraid of it. I don't normally like to go with what some people say is insider information. I have some messages from men in the military, and one in particular from a guy that has asked me to keep his name private, and I am going to respect that. That's more or less a standard that I have anyway. I don't normally read someone's full name when reading their email unless they give me permission. But let me read this one. This is from a guy named Mike. No, it's not me. Hey, Pastor Mike, God has put it in my heart to minister, and I wanted to thank you for your steadfastness. It is truly refreshing to have your input. I do have a quick question for you. What is your outlook on having survival gear and food stored in the event of emergency? Michael, you're not the only one who's asking that. I can tell you the Bible says, give a portion to 7 and also 8, for thou knowest not what evil may come upon the earth. I think it's prudent. If you lived out on the East Coast, you would have wished that you would have stored up some stuff. You would have wished that you would have been able to heat your house without electricity and fuel oil. You would have wished that you would have been able to eat food without the benefit of being able to go to a supermarket. You would have wished that you would have had blankets. You would have wished you would have had surplus water to be able to bathe yourself, clean yourself, to be able to drink potable water. You would have wished all of these things. Those of you who were caught in the snowstorms out in West Virginia, you would have wished you would have had eggs, milk, and bread, because everybody knows when it snows, you have to have eggs, milk, and bread. And so anybody out there who is asking me, do I think that do I have a favorable outlook on food storage, emergency preparedness, I will absolutely tell you yes. Because I want you to ask yourself one really significant question here. And actually, it's a couple questions. Number one, do you think that the downfall of America is near or imminent? That's the first question. Number two, can you show yourself, you don't have to show me, can you show yourself in the Bible where if America falls, that is going to institute what people call the Great Tribulation, or that we're going to be raptured before it happens? Can you show me that? Now, I believe in God's protection. I believe God took Lot out of Sodom as an example. And we have those clear examples where God saves out of before he does. I see that clearly. I'm teaching on the rapture right now. I've got part 2 done. Lindsay's down there working on it as I'm speaking. Bless her little heart. There will be a part 3, and there will probably be a part 4 to this. I may not necessarily take the standard pre-tribulational view of the rapture, the standard one. But the question that I'm asking, that you have to ask yourself is there going to be an imminent downfall or a near or soon coming downfall of America? I think the answer is yes. Is that mentioned in the scripture as being the start of what people are calling the Great Tribulation? I don't see it. It may be and it may not be. The thing is, you don't know. So here's what I'm saying. If America collapses, and clearly we are a house divided, if America collapses, shouldn't there be some preparation? Now, I believe along with physical preparation, I think we ought to exercise ourselves rather unto godliness. I think we ought to prepare ourselves spiritually for this. And let me say this to any of the Alex Jones crowd that would be listening. If America collapses, you have to ask yourself, why is it collapsing? It's because of the iniquity. It's because of the iniquity of America. Alex Jones's remedy to the New World Order takeover of America is arm enough people with guns, and that will fix the problem. But that does not, Alex does not ever address the sin problem. It is the problem of sin. I was looking back over, we covered this Tuesday, and I was looking back over Psalm 12 again today. Help, Lord. And I will say this, if you and I are to have any help in these days that are coming, it must come from the Lord. Something that I heard several years ago that just really, it stuck out to me. The Bible is not a self-help manual. It's not. It is a manual instructing us to ask God for help. Because if America crumbles, it's simply because America quit calling unto God. Those who call unto God, God will hear, but most of America won't. Help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. This was the point I was making Tuesday, is that whether it's me, Rob Skiba, Todd Bentley, Alex Jones, Stan Monteith, any number of people, we will all fail in our ideas, principles, prophecies, prognostications, forecasting. We will all fail. The only thing that you can rely upon is 100% the Word of God. Now look at verse 8, Psalm 12. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. We have exalted a man to be president who, number one, favors the wedding of two men who kiss each other on the mouth. And if you remember, when I first started saying that, I'm saying that in lieu of saying other things that these men do. That's about as clean as it gets. But you need to remember, these are two men that kiss each other on the mouth. And that's as far as the abomination as I want to even think of. But that's who they are. And the president favors and exalts this as like the highest esteem. It's like these are the most honorable people in the whole country. It's like our country can't get along unless we have sodomites running everything. We need sodomites teaching our school children. We need sodomites running health clinics. We need sodomites in public office. We need sodomites everywhere. If we get sodomites everywhere, we'll have a better America. This is what you hear. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. And so if groups out there, militia groups, patriot groups, Tea Party groups, Alex Jones groups, if they all get together and say, we need to get our guns and run the federal government back where they belong and run the New World Order back into oblivion. That's what we need to do. That will not address. Can you name? I want to ask you a question. This is a serious one. Can you name somebody that you absolutely so totally trust as being some godly individual person that you would say, you know what, if we had this guy to be our leader, that would fix all of our problems? And even if you can think of one, he's got to have help. And I'm telling you, the godly man has ceased out of this nation. If we're cut in half, who's going to lead the nation? I don't know of anybody. Ron Paul, I like his ideas. I think I would align with a lot of what he says. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, let me just ask it this way. What stand does Ron Paul take on Israel? It's a good question. And so who are we going to trust? Who's going to run it? And you know as well as I do. You know as well as I do. If by some freak or act of God, we would have elected Ron Paul to be president of the United States, how long do you think it would take? How long? Okay? How long do you think he would last? Because evil people don't go away. They just don't go away. And so anyway, the brother's asking me about provisions, and I say, yeah. He said, I've read through my Bible many times. Matt 24 is clear, but further there is the verses on the women with lamps. I'm going to talk about that. Though I believe the oil lamps and wicks have to do with our spiritual readiness, the state of our faith, I'm a bit torn. I am a USMC Iraqi war vet. Thank you for serving your country, by the way. I have been saved most of my life. As a lay leader in combat, have taught and studied since I have been home. These things are a bit strong in my nature. You and I have a great deal in common. I, too, was the kid looking into mysteries and aliens and more. I've used my Bible to show Galactic Federation of Light followers what God said and how the New Age alien thing is Luciferian. You've been so helpful. I thank Jesus for your insight and for his insight and wisdom in my life. But he's USMC. He's asking a legitimate question. Now, Michael, if you're listening today, I want you to listen to someone else. This is someone who sent me this, and they asked their name to be withheld. Mike, I'm sending this in agreement about the military. He said, I'm a platoon sergeant. And he said, by oath. And the reason why I'm reading this is I want you to understand that the America that we thought we had does not exist anymore. There are pockets of it, sure there are. And I'm going to show you where one of the pockets is. One of the pockets of I'll just say constitutional thinking. How's that? They may not be Christians. I'm just saying constitutional thinking. Let me show you where one of these pockets are. And I'll tell you that I think that we are going down a road that we never thought we would get to in our lifetime, but I think we're there. Mike, I'm sending this in agreement about the military. I'm a platoon sergeant. And by oath, we are sworn to defend and uphold the Constitution against all aggressors, both foreign and domestic. And I want you to listen to what he said. This is from a platoon sergeant in the military. A revolt is legal for us, meaning the military, by the Constitution. We are to protect the people from the enemy. We are the enmity between the government and the people. If government tries to remove our freedoms, we are bound by oath to stand up lawfully and stop it. Wow. Let me read what he sent after that. And if anybody in the federal government, the NSA, the CIA, or anything like that, they are listening, they'll probably be able to trace who said this. It's no big deal for them. He said, all officers of the 7 uniformed services in the United States take, swear, or affirm an oath of office upon commissioning. It differs slightly from that of the oath of enlistment that enlisted members recite when they enter the service. It is required by statute, the oath being prescribed by Section 331, Title 5, United States Code. It is traditional for officers to recite the oath upon promotion, but as long as the officer's service is continuous, this is not actually required. One notable difference between the officer and enlisted oath is that the oath taken by officers does not include any provision to obey orders. While enlisted personnel are bound by the Uniform Code of Military Justice to obey lawful orders, officers in the service of the United States are bound by this oath to disobey any order that violates the Constitution of the United States. Interesting. You have to ask yourself the question, is he the only one in the military who thinks that? Well, I had mentioned the other day, talking about a military revolt. The guys in the military who don't like the commander-in-chief. And he said, Mike, I'm sending this in agreement about the military. I don't know what's going to happen. But there's talk. There's talk that who knows what's going to happen. Some other things that happened. Tuesday, Monsanto wins California. GMO labeling law defeated. President Obama was the only big winner on Tuesday. The Monsanto company, the billion-dollar business behind genetically modified foods, were victorious in California, where a measure that would have required the labeling of GMOs lost at the polls. In other words, California said, you know what? We want a law that says that any food manufactured in the state of California, if it has genetically modified material in it, we think you ought to label it as such. It was by will of the people. Monsanto, who has billions of dollars to waste on fighting stuff like this, won. They won. So now Monsanto can do whatever they want to do with the food, and they don't have to tell you diddly about it. They don't have to say a word about it. Is this really the country that you and I thought we had? And then Denver, Colorado. First came marijuana as medicine. Now comes legal pot for the people. Those who have argued for decades that legalizing and taxing weed would be better than a costly failed U.S. drug war have their chance to prove it as Colorado and Washington become the first states to allow pot for recreational use. Let's just, and I want you to understand this. Now we have 2 states in the country that are legalizing the use of mind-altering and conscience-altering drugs to be used, and the term recreational use, I mean, that it's a party, it's fun. They're not using it because they need it as medicine. It's not a pain reliever. It doesn't keep them from getting sick when they're under chemotherapy. Here, try this, man. Oh, you won't. It's legal here, man. I read something. I can't remember where I read it. A guy was giving a synopsis of how we got where we got. And he said, you know, all these hippies in the 60s and 70s, and he said they were taking these big, bad trips on LSD. And he said they were being propelled into a world that was nothing but euphoria and where everything seemed right. And he said all of a sudden they come back down from this euphoria and they look at the world around them and all of a sudden nothing's right and it's like a downer. And he said, we're now being governed and run by these people who took these euphoric drugs, who think that the world is so messed up that it needs alteration and correction, that if we can just get everybody in the same paradigm, then we'll create this nirvana that we experienced when we were high. That's what these people think. Let's see here. What else? So you know about the pot. You know about Monsanto. You know about the president. You know about the liberals. You know about all that stuff that's going on. Let me see what else I pulled up here. Drudge Report. California voters approve higher taxes. In approving a ballot measure sought by Governor Jerry Brown to raise taxes for several years, California took a step toward improving the state's fiscal situation and avoiding education cuts. Raise taxes. Taxes are higher now. This is from CBS Las Vegas. Vegas employer. Obama won, so I fired 22 employees. A Las wages business owner with 114 employees fired 22 workers today, apparently as a direct result of President Obama's reelection. David, he asked to remain anonymous, told host Kevin Wall on 100.5 KXNT that, quote, elections have consequences and that at the end of the day, I need to survive. So he fired 22 people. But don't worry. Those of you who were fired, don't worry. You got a guy in the White House that's going to take good care of you. In fact, if you know how to fill out the right paperwork, you can basically not work another day of your life and be given money every month. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Boeing announces big layoffs in defense division. Boeing announced a major restructuring of its defense division on Wednesday that will cut 30% of management jobs from 2010 levels. Close facilities in California and consolidate several business units to cut costs. Why are they cutting costs? They're not getting any government contracts. They're not building fighter planes and things like that. They're not building stuff like that. Why? Because of what's going on. Is it true what Eisenhower said about the military-industrial complex? Do they really hold as much power as Eisenhower said they did? I think they do. Virginia store closes for a day to mourn the loss of America. Virginia's 13 electoral votes went to President Obama for the second straight election, and the proprietor of a store in the south central city of Bedford is not hiding his dismay. Lyons Jewelers hung up multiple signs on the windows of the shop indicating the shop would not be open for business Wednesday, including one saying the store was closed to, quote, mourn the loss of the America that our forefathers endowed to us. And then I read this story a while ago. Reid moves to limit GOP filibusters. So I want you to think of what Tuesday represents now. I mean, okay, yeah, we elect this guy. We elect him because, maybe we just need to tell everybody that it's okay for us to have a half-white president. And I'll be honest with you, that is why some people voted for him. But I also know, and I know a guy that said in 2008, well, I hated to vote for a black man, but I think he's the only one that can straighten this country out. You know what he was? He was a union Democrat that had been told by his union bosses all his life that if he didn't vote Democrat and liberal, that he would be out of a job. They would cut his pension and take away his benefits, and he would be starving in the streets. That's what they told him. So he believed it. So these people have voted for bigger government all this time. Let me tell you what God's idea of government is. Okay, let me tell you God's idea of government. We're going to go to the scriptures. Exodus chapter 18, verse 15. You remember Moses was sitting, he had all of these Israelites around him in the wilderness, had them there for 40 years. And Moses was the government. He was the government. That was it. And Moses would sit in the judgment seat all day long. People lined up. They had problems. They had disputes. They had things that needed to be settled. And they came to Moses. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, went to Moses and said, Moses, what you're doing is not good. It's not good that the responsibility, listen to this now, and I want you to listen to this. I want you to think about what America used to be versus what it is now and where it's headed. America used to be, and I want to say this to you, and I want you to think about this before you say, America used to be the land of local government. It's what it used to be. The land of localized government. A township governing itself. A state governing itself. It's what it used to be. And the Constitution enumerated powers, which basically means, okay, federal government, you get these 5 powers, and that's it. And the states then have these several powers. But here's the thing. Any situation that comes up that is not previously defined as a power belonging to the federal government automatically goes to the states. In other words, we framed the Constitution so that the states would have local control over their local people. And that's in the Bible. Let me read it to you. Moses said unto his father-in-law, because the people came unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, the thing that thou doest is not good. You know what he's doing? Moses, you cannot have a centralized government. It won't work. It's not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. But be thou, notice that God is in this now. Be thou, where did I finish reading here? Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God. That's the key. Men of truth, hating covetousness. That means they will not take gifts and bribes. They will not go to the special interest party at the resort hotel next weekend. They won't do it. They hate covetousness. And place such over them to, listen to this. Listen how this is. To be rulers over thousands, then rulers over hundreds, and then rulers over 50s, and then rulers over tens. Local, small government. And let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring to thee, because, yes, there is a necessity for a highest authority. There is a necessity for it. But the Supreme Court does not rule on every case in the country. It doesn't. It can't. But on cases of law, when it comes to the Constitution, that's what they're supposed to be dealing with. There has to be a final authority somewhere. And so anyway, let them judge the people at all seasons. Shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. So Moses instituted localized small government. The people would be ruled over by tens, then by 50s, by hundreds, by thousands, and then Moses would be the highest authority in case it worked up the way and nobody could really decide what was right or wrong according to the law of God, the Constitution. They said, we will have a high court in the land settle this issue for us. And that's what they set up. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you just a very simple question. And you'd be surprised at the number of people who do not know the answer to this. How is it that the law of our land, the Constitution, provides for what your children should learn in their schoolhouse? Who gets that decision? Most people in this country would say, well, that probably goes to the National Department of Education. The National Department of Education probably is the one, by law, that should be able to make all the decisions about what children learn in this country. Did you know that that is not correct? It's not true. That by law, the local school district has total sovereign authority over the district and their children. The school board. The school board. A group of guys with picks and shovels and pitchforks and workerman gloves in their hands. A group of guys that are men of the community who are interested in the outcome of the community and the benefit of the community and the stability of the community, the local community. They're the ones who by law have the absolute authority over their school district. How then did it change? You see, Michelle Obama's bill, let me fill you in on this. My mom worked part-time. They've cut her hours so much it's not even worth her going in anymore. Let me tell you how this works. Michelle Obama goes to Congress after an election, lame duck session of Congress, and says, ram this school lunch bill through. And they did. They rammed it through. President hurry up and signed it. Now it's the law of the land. And it basically says that we're going to force all the children in the country to eat this food. Do you know how they get to do that? When actually did you know the school board can say to Michelle Obama, take your hummus and choke on it yourself. We're not feeding our kids this Middle Eastern garbage, junk. We're not feeding it to them. We're going to give them hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza and chips and soda pop is what we're going to do. And chili and peanut butter. The local school board has every right to do that. They won't. Do you know why? Because the U.S. Department of Education was designed with one intention in mind, and that is to distribute enough government money to the local school districts so that they could not survive without the money. You see, the thing is that the school lunch law, You can reject the school lunch law if you're a school, if you want to. You'll just lose the funding for buying the food. That's what will happen. The federal government says, you want the money? We've got $4 million for your school. You want the $4 million? Because your teachers are part of the National Education Association, the teachers union. And if you dare turn down this money, we're going to make a phone call to the teachers union, and they're going to go on strike because they want a raise, and you won't give it to them. So you won't do what we tell you to do. You're going to lose your school lunches. Your teachers are going to walk out the door, and you won't have a school anymore. And you won't be able to pass our guidelines. And if you don't pass our guidelines, then we're going to come take over your school anyway. And that was never intended by God to be that way. But that's just an example. Federal government says to the state of Missouri, we want you to do this. State of Missouri says, we don't want to do this. Federal government says, well, we had budgeted $4 billion for infrastructure repairs in the state of Missouri, that we were going to give you that money with no, well, you don't have to pay it back. It would be a grant. But if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we're not sending the money. And then we're going to call all of the union officials in your state, and we're going to make a phone call and say, you know what? Your guys out there working the lines and working the stuff out there, go on strike. And all of a sudden now the state is left with nothing. Nothing. And this is against the principles that are in the Bible of localized, local, small government over a local group of people. Let me read Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 16. God said, and I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother, and the stranger that is with him. You shall not respect persons in judgment, but you shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's, and the cause that is too hard for you, bring it unto me, and I will hear it. And I commanded you at that time all the things which you should do. That was God's government. The rulers over thousands, the rulers over hundreds, the rulers over 50, and the rulers over tens. That was God's local government. When they went into the land of Israel and divided out into the territories that they had, the judge, remember, they were under judge rule. Moses was the first of those judges, and it went all the way through to the time of Samuel, 17 of them, I believe. And those judges did not have total dictatorial power over all of the tribes of Israel. You know who had it? The local elders. They're the ones who had the power, because they all had the same constitution. They all had the same law that they had to abide by, and they had to judge based upon that law. Here's what happened. In Joshua chapter 23, verse 2, the Bible says, and Joshua called for all Israel, and for their elders, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and said unto them, I am old and stricken in age, and ye have seen all that the Lord your God hath done unto all these nations because of you. For the Lord your God is he that hath fought for you. Behold, I have divided unto you by lot these nations that remain, to an inheritance for your tribes from Jordan, with all the nations that I've cut off, even to the great sea westward. Once Joshua had divided up the land, he sent those people, their tribes, into their land, and basically said, you have your judges, you have your rulers, your captains, your officers. Go judge and rule yourself. Take care of yourself. They're your people. Those of you from the tribe of Gad, do what the elders of Gad lead you to do. That doesn't necessarily mean what Judah has to do. But you will all be under the strict rules and guidelines and the law of Almighty God. That's what you'll be under. And that was God's plan and purpose for the government of his people. That principle was in the minds of those who framed the Constitution and then wrote the Bill of Rights, to give the rights and the power to the local people. We don't have that anymore. We're losing it. So now watch what happens. You know what happened in the book of Judges. They served God, they went bad. They served God, they went bad. They served God, they went bad. And so in 1 Samuel chapter 8, here's what happened. Here's now the situation, because people are taking gifts now. Listen to what's happening. It came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre. You know what that means? They went after money, lucrative things. In other words, you want this done? How does that benefit me? I've been to Kenya. I know that if you want anything done in Kenya, you gotta slip money to an elected official. You gotta slip money to a cop. That's how it works over there. It's wrong. But that's how they do things over there. Lucrative. Whatever benefits me, that's what I want. Is that done in America? Oh, yeah. Now we have laws. Oh, he's taking a bribe. Oh, we can't have that. But once he gets in elected office, the amount of influence that's exerted over him by Monsanto and other corporations, other big businesses, is so heavy that he dares not go against the people who have the money. And so our elected officials in Washington, D.C., are they really looking out after us? No. You know, even Dick Gebhardt, he was the congressman in our district for years. Never lived here. Even though the law said he had to have a residence in the district that he was in. Did you know he had a residence? He had so much money that he just bought a house, put up a mailbox, had somebody get the mail every now and then, but he never lived here. You know where he lived? He lived out east where he could do big business with people out there. That's what he was doing. Now 1 Samuel 8:11. Well, let me finish this. Verse 3. They turned aside after lucre and took bribes and perverted judgment. Then all the elders, listen to this now, then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. You know what they did? They did exactly what America is this close to doing. We are this close. You see, you're going to hear a lot of talk now about bipartisan bickering. Nothing can get done in Congress because the Democrats want one thing and the Republicans won't budge. Well, they shouldn't budge. They shouldn't cave in to the demands of liberalism. They shouldn't do that. But America is saying, we can't get nothing done. Why, we can't get our roads fixed. Why, we can't get government checks out here because Congress won't vote on anything. We are this close, people. You need to understand how close we are to losing local control of government. We're that close. Some of you, in some places in America, it doesn't even exist anymore. There are some places in America where it's not even American control. It's United Nations control, and you know it. You've seen the maps. They're real. So we're not just talking about losing our local mayor being able to make laws that suit the people of his township. We're talking about losing the whole country. We are that close to looking at somebody like Barack Hussein and saying, you know what? Why don't you just take everything over and do it how you want to do it? He's practically already doing that with all these executive decisions that he's making, these presidential decision directives, these executive orders. He's practically already doing that. And God forbid that some catastrophe happen in America. Because you know as well as I do what will happen. Just like that, the president can declare martial law, take over the whole country, and Congress can't even review the situation for 6 months. You know as well as I do that that's coming. Should you be prepared? Yeah, I think you should. Now, let me do this. If you want to study 1 Samuel again, 1 Samuel 8:11. God told them what kind of king they were going to get. Okay? Israel took their own authority that God gave them. Israel, and you need to understand this, Israel didn't have a king. Egypt had a king. Assyria had a king. Babylon had a king. The Canaanites had a king. They all had kings. The Philistines had 5 of them. They had kings. Every nation at the time around Israel had a king except Israel, because God gave them the right to govern themselves. And then Israel went stupid. And they said, we want a king like Egypt has. We want one like Assyria has. We want one like the Babylonians have. We want one like the Persians have. We want a king. Everybody around us has got a king. How come we don't have a king? We want a king. God says, you're going to get a king? Fine, I'm going to give him to you. He's going to take all your stuff. He's going to tax you in oblivion. He's going to take your sons and your daughters. He's going to take grain out of your field. He is going to put you he's going to put you to work for him mandatorily. And you ain't going to say about it. You want to give up your authority over yourself? Fine, I'll let you do it. And God did not rebuke Samuel in that deal. Samuel, give him the king. We are that close, people, for this country to turning dictatorial powers over to the centralized government. And now it won't happen overnight. And I'm going to say this, it probably won't happen without chaos of some kind. But it will happen. Take your Bible, turn to Matthew chapter 25. And I'm going to say this, and I'll be honest with you, I am wore out today. I am exhausted today. I've recorded an hour-and-a-half Watchman broadcast. I've tried to get as much done as I can before I leave. I am going, you might as well, I mean, I've got it on the website. I am out of town tomorrow morning. I'm gone. And I'll be gone for several days. And then I'm coming back. My wife is having surgery on Tuesday, so I will be with her Tuesday and Wednesday. And I plan to be here a week from today, but that all depends on the condition of my wife, okay? So keep her in your prayers. But I will tell you, I am exhausted. I'm sitting here, I am leaned back in my chair, and I'm just getting close to being out of gas, all right? But let me finish with this thought, all right? Matthew chapter 25. Here is why I am against socialism, communism, and communitarianism. Now, there is no doubt in my mind, I just cannot fathom. I cannot fathom this. And I remember watching the election results. There was one state over on the East Coast where an admitted socialist politician won in nearly a landslide a seat in Congress. He actually told everybody he was a socialist, and he got elected. That tells you something. That tells you that this country is no longer based really in any part on what this book says. people, they don't care. It's not in their heart. They haven't been taught that way. They have been trained that way. They have been trained that if you have money, you need to feel guilty and let the government have it. And if you don't have money, don't worry about it, because the government will take it from the people who feel guilty, and they will take it from them because they really don't need it all to begin with. And then they'll give it to you. And I want to tell you something. What you make is nobody else's business but yours. If you make $10 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour, if you've educated yourself, you've worked hard, you run a business, or you have a management position somewhere, or you just have done it, and you make $250,000 a year. Did you know that is your business? It's your money. It's your education and your work and your effort and your investment in your future that got you there. And just because there's somebody up in Chicago that doesn't want to work, because, after all, making 10 babies is a whole lot easier than going out and having a job and a husband. The government now says that if you make a good income, you don't need all of it. And for you to even think that you could have all this money that you worked for and earned that's a sin. That is a sin. You don't need it. There's some people over here that need it. They're not working. Why aren't they working? Because you've already told them, don't work and we'll pay you more. And I want to tell you something. You can put whatever label you want to on me. But in cultural centers in this country, it is a common knowledge that why should I work? It's stupid. Why should I work? Government's going to pay me money every month. I don't have to. Let me tell you, that's an abomination to God. Our president is a socialist. He is a communitarianist. Communitarianism, and oh, by the way, let me apply this. Let me apply this same principle now of local government to the church. Let me show you where this is going, and you'll spot it. Who should control Bethel Church? Who should do that? Me. And the people of this church under this Bible. We don't go to the meetings anymore, denominational meetings. You know why? Because they have no right to govern over this church. It's not in the Bible. You don't see those meetings in the Bible. We are under the direct authority of the apostles, those men who wrote the foundation of Scripture in the New Testament. We are under that authority, under the authority of Christ, who is the head. But there is no provision in Scripture for a church to be under the authority of a denomination. That is centralized power. And we're not there anymore. We govern ourselves according to this book. We are almost always in general agreement on practically everything here. God's done a wonderful thing. I know that's unusual, but it's a wonderful thing that God has done here. And you and I both know the problem. See, we've had to leave the denominations. Why? Because even the denominations gave over their authority to write literature to the publishing companies who have been run by Jesuits, people who don't believe the infallibility and the authority of the Scriptures. They have yielded their rights over to a centralized hub where the hub says, these are the new doctrines now as they go out to the churches. And a church like ours says, you know what? We're not nursing from that one. We have nothing to do with that. And we pulled out. You see what centralized authority does? You see what, and oh, by the way, they did this in our denomination that we used to be a part of. It used to be if you gave money if you sent money to the head office and it was designated to a certain missionary, the denomination had to give that money to that missionary. Now they've gone all communitarian on us. Now they've changed the giving program to where if you send money in for brother so-and-so in the Philippines, we can't guarantee that he's going to get that money. Because we in the central office, we really see all the needs of all of the missionaries. And we think maybe that, I mean, I know you sent in probably $5,000 this month to the missionary that you wanted it to go to. But actually, there are some other missionaries out here that aren't doing as well as he is. And it's not fair that he should get all the money and these other guys over here don't get anything. And plus, I mean, I got to pay my secretary, and we've got to have new paint on the walls here at the office, and we've got to have new carpet, and I need a new chair. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take all the money that all the denominational churches send in for missionaries, and we're going to keep it. And then we are going to give it out how we want to. See how it works? Matthew chapter 25. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom, and 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. The wise took the oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, No, not so. Lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him into the marriage, and the door was shut. The 5 wise virgins were smart enough to do what was necessary to prepare, to lay up, to store, to be ready. You say, well, some guy's making $1 million. He don't need all that money. How do you know? That's not your business, what he makes. That's not your call. You have no say in that whatsoever. Did you know that God, when God gives us something, it is ours to do with as we please? Did you not know that? You go study the scriptures some more. This is why Naboth would not sell his vineyard. Number one, it was against the law, but he said, you know what, this is my vineyard. And I know you're the king. I don't owe you my vineyard. I know you're the government. You're probably going to take it over anyway, but I'm not selling it. I'm not doing it. You have to take my life for it. And that's exactly what they did. But Ahab had no rights to Naboth's wealth, had no rights to Naboth's vineyard. These 5 wise virgins were not socialist. And they were not being told by a socialist dictator, you have oil, you need to give your oil to those people who don't have any oil. And they said, well, what's that going to leave us then? It's against the Bible. It's against God's principles. We are this close, people, to a king over America who will he will own everything that he wants to own. And we're this close to it. You know what? Bad as I hate to do it, I'm going home. I'm tired. I'm going to be down the road tomorrow. You be praying for us. Be praying for Brady and Bradley. They'll be covering for me. Listen, you support these guys, okay? You show up online. You listen to them. You pray for them, all right? They're good preachers, good young men. Anyway, I love you all. I am out of here. See ya. Adios, muchachos. I'll let let you know if I killed a deer or not. Be watching our website. I'll tweet it.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighborhood.